And coming up this evening here on Eyewitness News, Houston police questioning a high school dropout about some 650 burglaries. Also, a group of physicians and businessmen is trying to save the Shamrock Hotel from the wrecker's ball.
I'm Ron Fulton in Northeast Harris County, where detectives are trying to figure out who murdered 3 people on a houseboat last night.
I'm Tom Cook. Houston police are looking for a former Iranian oil minister whom they say got away with murder.
I'm Shara Fryer at the livestock show, where the commercial breeders are wrapping up their week, but the youngsters have already started their competitions.
We'll have these stories and others coming up next here on Eyewitness News.
You're watching Channel 13, KTRK TV. #1 in Texas. Eyewitness News with Dave Ward. Bob Allen has sports. Ed Brandon with the weather. And Action 13's Marvin Zindler. Now, Eyewitness News.
Good evening, friends. A 14-year-old boy is fighting for his life in Herman Hospital this evening. Another juvenile victim of a gunshot wound. This shooting incident occurred in far East Houston. It happened around 4:30 this afternoon. Reporter Elma Brewer now standing by on the scene of this latest incident to give us the details. Elma?
Dave, right now in the small North Shore community, it is very, very confused. We have police officers trying to find parents. We have parents trying to find children. We have teenagers running around. We don't have all the details, but we do know that the victim was taken to North Shore Hospital. Then from there, he was life-flighted to Herman Hospital, and as you heard before, he is in very, very critical condition. When the shooting took place, and again, we don't have the details, there were no adults in the house. I talked to one of the neighbors who heard the gunshot and said a few seconds later there were about a dozen kids running out to the streets trying to get away. They were all scared. He did not know what ages, but we figured that they were from 10 to about 14 or so. The name of the boy who allegedly shot the teenager is Mike Brewer, and we cannot give you right now the name of the boy that is shot because we don't know yet if his parents have been notified or not. As everyone knows, this is the 11th shooting involving a juvenile in the last 6 weeks, so this is really a tragedy. I did talk to one of the neighbors whose wife called the police right after the shooting.
One of the kids found a gun, loaded it, and somehow pulled the trigger, and the boy was shot.
We know that by 10 o'clock tonight we will have as many details as we can get together for you. Dave.
Okay, Elma, thank you for that report. Investigators searching for leads this evening in the murders of a Channelview couple and their son. Murders took place on a houseboat, and Ron Fulton has that story.
The Carlin family was not far away from realizing their dream of converting their houseboat to a dive boat. They were going to leave the Houston crime rate far behind and operate off the coast of Belize. Those dreams were shattered last night when Jack Carlin, his wife Martha, and their son Andrew were gunned down on their boat. They were found by Scott Niermeyer, a family friend who had also been living on the boat. He says they were alive when he left to make a short trip to the store. He's still scared.
Yeah, it's scary. It's really scary. It's like you don't believe it's really real. You don't believe it. And then you realize just how much danger you're in. And then you move very fast. It's yeah, scary, very scary.
Today, detectives were back at the boat. One of the questions now facing them is why was the family shot execution style?
Wish we knew at this time. It's, there are some items that are missing from the house. That could possibly be one. We don't know at this time.
Captain Quinn also says he believes there were two murder weapons, a small caliber pistol and a shotgun. Detectives working on this case say they have no witnesses to the killings. And they say without witnesses, it will make it just that much tougher to figure out who came on this boat last night and for some reason killed 3 people. Ron Fulton, Eyewitness News in Northeast Harris County.
Houston police are saying they believe a former Iranian oil minister has fled the United States, left last month after he allegedly murdered his wife. Some police officers are angry that this suspect was released on bond by one judge after another judge had denied bond, and Tom Cloak explains what happened.
When police answered a disturbance call at this far west Houston home December 9th, the officers say they found 60-year-old Mustafa Bagba beating his wife to death with a club. An autopsy later showed she died of a fractured skull, but the officers insist he had literally beaten the top of her head off. Bagba, a former oil minister from Iran, was charged with murder and denied bond by Judge Woody Denson after a relative said Bagba planned to flee the country.
He was not a citizen of this country. We have no extradition laws or political ties with Iran, and I felt that no bond would be the proper way to handle the matter to assure that he would be here for his trial.
But Denson was miffed when defense attorney Mike DeGuerin later convinced another judge, I.D. McMaster, to release Bagba on $10,000 bond.
We proved it up in court, and he followed the law.
McMaster says Judge Denson simply wasn't available to hear the new motion for bond. But Denson says Judge McMaster should have stayed out of it.
I was disappointed. I think this is an example of the differences in judicial philosophy.
I've never seen it done before, and I hope I never see it done again. But hopefully it's a lesson that'll be learned, but it's at the price of a life that somebody's not going to ever have to pay for, I'm afraid.
DeGuerin predicts his client will one day return to face the charges against him, which now include bond jumping. Though police are angry, everyone involved admits no one person is to blame for Bagba's disappearance, except perhaps Bagba himself, and a system of justice that protects everyone's rights, including foreigners. Tom Cook, Eyewitness News, West Houston.
Houston police say they may be on the verge of breaking up a major burglary ring here operating in southwest Houston. Suspect already in custody has admitted involvement in 650 burglaries and is taking police all through neighborhoods that he says he burglarized. Don Cobos has the story.
It's upper and middle class neighborhoods like this one in the Memorial area of Houston that was the target of this burglary ring. All day Friday, Houston police have driven 18-year-old high school dropout Mark Anthony Palmer to those neighborhoods and homes he says he broke into and stole property. Investigators say that Palmer was part of an organized ring of burglars that worked primarily during the daytime. They specialized in stealing videotape recorders, televisions, jewelry, and even guns.
The burglaries were committed by kicking in the front door at random or throwing a brick or a pipe plant through the back sliding glass door or window at the back of the house.
Sergeant Harmon says after the department received a tip, Palmer was arrested on Thursday and charged with 2 counts of burglary. Once in police custody, Harmon said that Palmer started talking and explaining how the ring worked, concentrating on the homes in these parts of southwest Houston.
There are approximately 10, 15 to 20 individuals involved in this ring, and specifically in this A-Leaf area, and it's been going on for at least 3 or 4 years.
Harmon will continue driving Palmer around Houston until nightfall. However, no one in the department would say when and if other charges will be filed. Don Cobos, Eyewitness News.
Premature Siamese twins born 10 days ago in El Paso died early today at Texas Children's Hospital. Because their condition was so critical, the doctors there never even got a chance to study the feasibility of surgery to separate the two. Eyewitness News medical reporter Mary Ellen Conway has the story.
When the twin girls were brought to Texas Children's Hospital, their condition was already serious because neither child could breathe on her own. Although they were stabilized briefly, their condition continued to deteriorate, and they died at 1:30 a.m. These are the third set of co-joined twins to be seen at Texas Children's Hospital in the last 2 months. Siamese twins are born approximately once in every 50,000 births, but we're told it's not unusual to see them come in clusters. Dr. Arnold Rudolph says problems due to prematurity are often severe.
In many of these cases, you have intermixing of circulations. You may have the one twin actually surviving because of the support from the other twin. And just the complexities in themselves may make it very difficult to keep them alive.
Also at Texas Children's Hospital, doctors have put 6-week-old Oscar Cantu in intensive care because of a serious infection. The Corpus Christi youngster received a bone marrow transplant last month because he lacks infection-fighting cells. On a brighter note, another bone marrow transplant patient was released today. Just 14 weeks ago, Joshua Smith had to be carried into the hospital. Today, he wanted to run out. Joshua goes home to Carlton, Missouri. Mary Ellen Conway, Eyewitness News.
Some Houston doctors and businessmen have formed a coalition called the Save the Shamrock Committee to urge the Texas Medical Center not to tear that historic building down. Medical Center bought the hotel last year but says it cannot afford to maintain it. Debbie Johnson reports.
Already over 2,000 signatures have been gathered on petitions to present to the Texas Medical Center Board to save the Shamrock Hilton Hotel. A group of medical professionals and area businessmen have formed a coalition called Save the Shamrock Committee and are even selling T-shirts bearing the slogan in hopes of getting their message to the Medical Center Board. A parade is planned for mid-March around the hotel itself. The group maintains there are alternative uses for the hotel, such as providing accommodations for families visiting loved ones in the medical center, something MD Anderson has plans for, but the hospital intends to build a new hotel facility.
The stated purpose of this new hotel is to provide low-cost housing for poor people who have loved ones in the medical center. We feel this is a perfect opportunity and usage for the Shamrock itself.
TMC President Richard Winardi says that is not feasible, however, and estimates it would cost $20 million to renovate the hotel and an additional $750,000 a month to maintain it. Hotel builder Glenn McCarthy, who is aligned with the Save the Shamrock Committee, disagrees.
What he's doing now is trying to cheat somebody for tearing this building down and smoothing all the rest of the property to put parked cars on or something of that sort.
Houston photographer Ed Borden, who photographed the Shamrock opening in 1949 and many other events at the facility, says the value of the hotel, in memories, is worth far more than the $46 million parcel of land it stands on.
The Shamrock is the best built building that you'll find in Texas. It's made of the finest quality of material. It's a giant reminding you of the good days of Houston.
Debbie Johnson, Eyewitness News.
A witness who was found in Oklahoma took the stand today in the Hurley Fontenot murder trial. That report is coming up. And still ahead, Sheriff Fryer reports on some youth activities at the livestock show. We'll take another look at Prince Charles wrapping up his Texas visit in San Antonio. And Action 13's Marvin Zindler has the Friday report on dirty food establishments.
Okay.
Final arguments are set for next Tuesday in the Polk County murder trial of former school principal Hurley Fontenot. Prosecutors called on several rebuttal witnesses today, including a so-called fugitive. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Rosenfield has the story.
36-year-old Douglas Duncan was flown to Texas from Oklahoma to testify against defendant Hurley Fontenot, the former Hull Zeta Junior School principal accused of killing Billy Mack Fleming last April. Prosecutors have said Fontenot killed the coach on his staff out of jealousy, for Fleming planned to marry the school secretary both men supposedly loved. But throughout the trial, defense attorney Dick DeGuerin has tried to suggest Fleming's murder may have been drug-related, and often referred to one of the coach's longtime friends, Douglas Duncan, as, quote, a big-time cocaine dealer who disappeared shortly after his Channelview carpet business burned in 1982. That with a warrant for his arrest on misdemeanor charges still outstanding. During testimony Friday, Duncan admitted to the outstanding warrant, admitted he's used cocaine and marijuana in the past, but denied he ever supplied or used cocaine with Bill Fleming. He also denied being anywhere near Liberty County, Texas, the day Bill Fleming disappeared. But DeGuerin asked Duncan, quote, what proof do you have you were in Oklahoma on April 12th? Is it just your say-so? Yes, sir, replied Duncan, who later had a tearful reunion with Fleming's family. And then there's the mystery of the human blood found on the undercarriage of Hurley Fontenot's truck. The state has said that blood could not be typed, but defense attorneys have tried to show that it could, and that it was not Bill Fleming's blood, which he once listed as type B before trying to make a donation. But a Department of Public Safety chemist testified today that Fleming's blood couldn't have been type B, for tests on blood taken from Fleming's parents reveal their children could only be types A or O. District Judge John Martin says the case will go to the jury next Tuesday. Jim Rosenfield, Eyewitness News, Livingston.
24-year-old Jackie Williams of El Campo, accused in the deaths of her 5 small children who were killed in a house fire, surrendered to Wharton County authorities today. She was freed a short time later after posting a $5,000 bond. Co-defendant, 30-year-old Marcia Owens, posted similar bond yesterday when the indictments were returned. 2 of Owens' children also died in the fire at Williams' home. The women reportedly were in a Bay City bar when that fire broke out. Well, out at the livestock show, the youngsters have already entered into competition there, although this first week is dominated by the commercial breeders and ranchers. Let's join Sheriff Fryer at the Astor Hall to explain what she found behind the scenes there today. Sheriff?
Dave, as you can see over here, it's been a tough day for some of these bulls and heifers. We're in an area of the Astor Hall that's reserved largely for the commercial exhibitors. And every year it seems like we come out here and find breeds that aren't exactly ranch-hold names, but maybe one day will be, like the blonde Aquitaine, for instance. Of course, good cattle are judged by more than just their breed, and today we found youngsters doing just that. They were competing in the livestock judging contests. There's an army of them, 1,000 4-H and FFA youngsters on the broad expanse of the Astrodome floor. Away from the normal bustle of the Astor Hall, they're involved in the serious business of judging livestock. As individuals and as teams, each group of 4 animals they must rate in order of perfection. Jana Gardner already has 3 years of experience, and at the ripe old age of 12, talks the language of a pro.
You look for a nice feminine head and neck. You have to be level across the top line, and you have to have a good spring of ribs.
Surprised how many kids can talk like that?
Some of these youngsters are well trained by their agents and by their ag teachers, and they they practice a lot, so no, I'm not a bit surprised. In fact, we feel it'll be a fairly high scoring contest. There are some good classes, and they've been well trained, and we think they'll come out okay.
This one's a little too young to be involved yet, but the kids must judge several categories, including sheep, cattle, and pigs, even if the pigs don't always want to be judged.
I'm in it because I can go pick my own hog to race.
So you'll know what you're looking for when you go buy your own?
Yes, ma'am.
You gonna be a hog farmer one day, you think?
I don't know. I might.
Ag teachers rate the animals too, and the judges then explain to the kids how the animals should have been ranked. Top scorers will get free heifers to raise and show next year. How's she doing so far?
She's doing pretty good.
Now, why would you encourage her to learn how to judge pigs?
It's a learning process. She loves animals and agriculture and everything about it, and she wants to be a veterinarian, and so this is a good learning experience for her.
Little partner there must learn not to ride the sheep. But exposure is what it's all about.
There's a lot of benefits, and then again, bring them into this environment, just kind of keeping them in touch with agriculture, we think is probably the biggest benefit that they can have from here.
Lots of kids, as you can see, and their parents getting in touch with agriculture tonight. Performance at the rodeo will be by Ricky Skaggs, and we'll say for the weekend, the lineup includes Kool and the Gang, Anne Murray, Charlie Pride, and the Oak Ridge Boys. There are some tickets available, Dave, so I think there'll be good weather, we hope, and a good crowd. Back to you.
Let's hope. Thank you very much, Shara. Well, Action 13's Marvin Zindler's here to serve up his weekly survey of Houston food establishments that ran afoul of the city health inspectors. Who's in the news this week, Marvin?
Well, Dave, you're going to see the dirtiest, the filthiest bathroom that you have ever seen in your entire life in the back of a food establishment.
Do I have to see that?
David, if you're, in fact, if you folks out there eating, you might want to turn us off, even though I'd like to have the ratings tonight, but it's terrible.
Okay, and we'll have that a little later on, as they say.
That's right.
Thank you, Marvin. Let's go to sports now. Bob Allen is here to tell us about an honor for a Houston coach.
Yeah, we've got to say congratulations tonight, Dave, to Yates High School coach Luther Booker today, named the High School Coach of the Year by the Texas Sports Writers Association. Congratulations, Coach Booker. They went to the state title, and they won the state championship. We'll have more sports for you in just a minute. The Rockets lost to Milwaukee last night by 7. That's 2 losses in the 3 games they've played since Akeem Olajuwon went out, and the void he leaves is very obvious.
The problems begin on defense. The Rockets played Milwaukee even for 2 quarters last night, but then a 19-4 third quarter run by the Bucks put the game away.
We had too many situations where in a one-on-one situation they went by us. Guy pulls off, and then you've got to break down your defense.
Because when that happens, they dish off, and it creates fouls for the big guys. And one thing we can't have right now is fouls, in our front line.
And when you can't keep the other guys from scoring, it's necessary you score. And the Rockets had their chances.
In fact, we probably went inside easier against them than we've ever gone in against a Milwaukee ball club.
But Ralph Sampson could drop just 9 of 21 shots.
New position, new thing again. Just go ahead and I'll adjust back to it in a couple of days or whatever, a couple of games, and do what I was doing when I first started playing.
But Ralph is not alone. Only 3 Rockets hit more than half their shots, and the team got out-rebounded 54-35. That means added pressure to make every shot they take.
The whole key right now is that guys can't lose their confidence in themselves, and we gotta just hang together. It's a must we win one of these next 3.
Dallas in Dallas tonight, Dallas in the Summit Monday, and Utah and Salt Lake City on Tuesday. It won't be easy. Tim Melton, Eyewitness Sports.
Last night, Maryland knocked off #1 ranked North Carolina 77-72 in overtime. Len Bias hit 35 points for the Terrapins as North Carolina falls to 2nd in the ACC, a half game behind Duke. Now, Bias pretty much did it all for Maryland, hitting the shots, blocking the shots, rebounding. Maryland was down by 9 with 4 minutes left, tied it up, and went on to win it 77-72. Halliday had his first day of spring training as Astros manager as some of the pitchers and catchers reported to begin their workouts. Relief pitcher Frank Tapino got the bad news that he lost his arbitration case. He wanted $380,000. The Astros offered $280,000, and $280,000 it will be. Astros now 2-0 in arbitration cases, having won the Bill Dawley case as well. Well, Jimmy Connors picked up a pretty good ruckus as the Lipton International Tennis Players Championship continued today. Connors was playing Yvonne Lendl in the semis when he refused to continue playing. Connors protested a line call and defaulted. Now here it is. Connors will be in the far court, and you'll see the return there by Lendl. Connors thinks it's out, so he really doesn't make a big effort for it. But the linesman calls it in. And watch Jimmy Connors go nuts here. You'll be able to hear Connors in just a second as he protests.
You're wrong. He's wrong. The ball was this far out. I'm not playing under those conditions. Get the supervisor out here.
Well, this continued and continued and continued, and finally Connors picked up his racket and left the court and lost, officially ruled 1-6, 6-1, 2-6, 2-6, 3-2 for Lendl. David?
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's look at the weekend weather picture. Ed is here to tell us it is going to be cool.
It is going to be cool, and it may be wet. We'll take a look at the weekend forecast when we return.
You remember that beautiful weather we had back during the week? Now here comes the weekend, and listen to what this man's going to say.
That's right. If you're from out of town and you've been in Houston all week, this is most unusual for it to turn cool in February. This just doesn't happen. Actually, this is typical February weather. What we have had this week is not. High pressure over in the northeastern part of the country, backing into Texas and bringing us north and northeasterly winds. Clouds are moving in our direction, even though there is a cloud cover here already. That frontal system that moved through, stationary right along the Gulf, probably will see a low pressure area form on that front during the night tonight and during the day tomorrow. That'll bring more moisture over the front and increase the chance of rain in the Houston area. This afternoon at 5 o'clock, 46 degrees at Amarillo, 49 at Lubbock, 43 at Wichita Falls and Dallas, 53 in Texarkana. Temperatures generally in the 50s and 60s in the southern part of the state. The only place that has not experienced the effects of that frontal system yet, Brownsville at 78 degrees. So if you want warm weather, hurry down there because that front eventually will move through Brownsville. This is cloud movement in the state of Texas between 5 o'clock this morning and 5 o'clock this afternoon. And you can tell the cloud cover drifting in our direction. We have a fairly good chance of clouds and drizzle in the area tonight, clouds and rain tomorrow. Here's what it looked like in Houston today officially. Our low was 49 at 9 o'clock this morning. The high at half past midnight, 67 degrees. No rainfall in the past 24 hours. At 6 o'clock at Intercontinental Airport, 52 degrees. Here at KTRK, 55. At Hobby, 58. Things are a little bit better in the, barometer rising, winds northerly at 5, humidity 57%. Now, things are a little bit better in the western portion of the country. There is some rain along the Washington and Oregon coast, snow at higher elevations, not a lot of rain in northern California. However, all of the water that fell on the head rivers, especially of the Yuba River, continuing to move downstream and causing flooding problems. There is a new system just offshore that promises to cause heavy snow in portions of Washington, Oregon, and possibly northern California. Also, a lot of snow in the northeastern portion of the country today. Some of it fell in the nation's highest population centers, so it's pretty bad up there. Tomorrow we'll see a high-pressure area in Oklahoma. That'll continue our northerly winds, a low-pressure area forming on that front, a chance of shower activity throughout much of the Texas coast and inland for a couple of 100 miles. On Sunday, things could be a little bit better. High pressure moving a little bit to the southeast, continuing our northeast and easterly winds, so it'll be mild, but maybe no rain. For Galveston Bay, caution is advised to operators of small craft. Waters will be choppy. Offshore, the same thing, with seas 5 to 7 feet. The weekend forecast looks like this. We'll call for cloudy skies tomorrow, a 50% chance of rain, 45 to 58 for temperatures. On Sunday, partly sunny, 38 to 62, and just the slightest chance of rain. It couldn't last forever.
I suppose so. Okay, thank you, Ed. Well, Action 13's Marvin Zindler will be up next with his Rat and Roach report. Later in the hour, Dr. Ed Duke reports that apples may indeed help keep the doctor away. Van Hackett wraps up his series of reports on pornography in Houston. And Bruce Geetson reports on where the injured cowboys can go for treatment out at the rodeo. Action 13's Marvin Zindler here this evening with his Friday night list of eateries that didn't make the grade with the Houston health inspectors. And Marvin, anything unusual on tonight's report?
Well, in addition to the usual roach and filth, there was a mouse who was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
The mouse scampered out of the linen storeroom of the brick oven on Walnut February the 13th and ran right across Health Officer Davenport's foot. Then a roach dropped from a doorway onto her lab coat. Davenport found the floors filthy with mouse droppings, dead insects, and roach egg cases, and found roaches crawling on utensils in the storeroom. The Hong Chong Food Market on Holman was inspected Valentine's Day, and look at the condition of the toilet. Absolutely sickening. And look at the filth on the hand sink, the junk store around the place, the dead mouse on a window ledge, and old mouse droppings on shelves. Then there's Willie's Meat Market on Griggs. This place was inspected Monday, at which time there was an accumulation of dried blood and old food particles in the reach-in cooler, and the place had to throw out 30 pounds of ox lips. That's right, 30 pounds of ox lips. That smelled bad and was left out at unapproved temperature for a day. When Chi-Chi's on Richmond was inspected February the 11th, Inspector Graves found mouse droppings in 2 storerooms, dead mice on a glue board, and roaches live and dead in the kitchen's back storeroom. And then Helen K's on Broadway was inspected February the 10th. There were old and fresh mouse droppings throughout the place, and shoes stored on a shelf under the food preparation area.
City Council will soon vote on an ordinance allowing push-cart vendors in city parks. And as I've said before, I think that's a pretty good idea, as long as the vendors have assigned spots and stay in the parks, and as long as the city health department has strong control. Tomorrow at 6:30 on Eyewitness Houston, I'll have my mailbag, and I think you'll enjoy it. Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Marvin. You will enjoy Marvin's mailbag, I can guarantee it. A day after cutting a giant cake over at the state capitol, celebrating Texas' 150th birthday, Prince Charles flew on to San Antonio for the final stop of his four-city Texas visit. Mayor Henry Cisneros and a mariachi band greeted the prince this morning. Motorcade was waiting to take him to a minority-owned high-tech company on San Antonio's west side. After a lunch in San Antonio's Convention Center, the prince visited a housing project before getting back on the plane that took him to Palm Springs in California, his last stop before he returns to England. Reporter Van Hackett will take a look at proposed legislation to curb pornography and the controversy that is surrounding it. That story and others when Eyewitness News continue. We've all heard the expression, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and in his report this evening, Dr. Ed Duke says there is more to that than just an expression. There's some truth in it.
You know, you've all heard how these things will keep us away from doctors. Well, the fact is, there's a lot of truth in that statement. There is no question that the apple is a great gift of nature and a delightful snack. One medium-sized apple, about 2.5 inches in diameter, contains about 75 calories. Most of the calories, or energy if you would, in the apple are in the form of complex carbohydrates, not simple sugars. Complex carbohydrates help us maintain a nice, steady blood sugar level rather than having it shoot up and shoot down like it does with sugar. Besides all these other advantages, the apple is a great source of fiber. Like I've said before, if you'll eat enough fiber, there's no way that you're going to get constipated. An apple a day not only keeps doctors away from you, but it keeps your dentist happy. It's a great detergent food. It keeps your teeth clean, and it exercises your gums when you eat it. There's no question that an apple is not a cure to all your ills, but I do really believe that it's a superb contribution to your daily diet. Remember, we really are what we put into our bodies, and this is not a bad way to start. From the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, I'm Dr. Red Duke.
Thank you, Doctor. What impact does pornography have on women and possible violence against them? Well, in the conclusion of his series of reports, our Van Hackett takes a look at legislative proposals against pornography and the controversies that have developed.
More than anything else, it is the coupling of violence with pornography that has critics worried most. Is this just mindless entertainment that allows us to vent some of our darker emotions in a harmless fashion? Or does this sort of image desensitize us and even encourage a few to violent behavior?
Nobody's been able to demonstrate that in data. It's not so much pornography that generates rape. And there's a good bit of data that suggests most of the people we've studied who are at least convicted rapists grew up in homes that saw very little of this, and who saw very little of this as adolescents. They grew up in enormously restrictive, essentially to use a word, puritanical homes.
But the view from the Rape Crisis Center is not so sanguine.
Our volunteers are well aware, listening to the women talk about what goes on in their homes when they're battered, and the women who call on our rape hotline. That pornography is involved in the men's attitudes, in their brutality toward women. They like that stuff. It's appealing to them. It desensitizes them. It doesn't hurt so much then to hurt another human being.
The truth is, the research done to date leaves a lot of ambivalence.
You take away the pornography, you still got the problem.
But
pornography can aid and abet deviant tendencies. I don't think it so much causes particular sexual deviancy or disorder, but it can be used to kind of fuel deviant fantasies.
And even if it does not lead to violence, Dr. Van Hightower worries about the demeaning influence of pornography.
They want their wives to do the sort of thing that they see in this material. I mean, that's the attitude that they're developing, and that literature gives them the justification for expecting things from women that are humiliating, degrading, frightening.
Dr. Simon maintains we need to reevaluate our whole attitude toward women as second-class citizens, not just in terms of pornography, but in advertising, television, and movies. In other words, across the board. Attorney Catherine McKinnon has helped draft a law which is being copied in a number of communities around the nation. The statute would make pornography a violation of women's rights. It is both being hailed as a potent weapon against porn and criticized as a dangerous assault on the First Amendment's right to free speech and expression.
And we feel that there's going to have to be limitations placed on the right of promoting abuse of women.
You know, I would like to see society take a more concerned and possibly tougher stance with regard to some of the pornography. I worry about getting too restrictive here and getting into freedom of speech sorts of things as well.
We will not be presumptuous enough to even attempt to answer the questions raised, but we are struck by the need for us adults to examine our own attitudes and to communicate to our children a strong sense of values and responsibility. Van Hackett, Eyewitness News.